everyone, and welcome to day 5. Happy Friday. I'm glad you guys can join me for another day of creating art. And today what we're going to be doing, it was actually inspired by yesterday's video. If you didn't get a chance to watch it, go check it out. And in yesterday's video we collected nature, and it started to make me think about shadows, not just rubbings, but how can we create art using shadows. So what I want you to do in a minute is take a chance to go around your house and collect some objects. Now that might be little figurines, little toys for adults. Go collect if you have any artificial flowers, any plants in the house. Plants are great for this. If you have, I love these little dolls to do this with, especially if you want to practice drawing people or even drawing people. So what you're going to be doing in today's lesson is you're going to be collecting some of these objects, smaller or easier to get started with, and you're going to need a lamp for this because you need to cast a shadow. So you're going to place your object and you're going to place your lamp, and you're going to cast that shadow onto a piece of paper. So I'm going to show you that setup in 1 second. So let's do this. Go collect some things. So as you can see, I'm using my Elmo to project the shadow. You can move your light around to change up how your shadow is casted. And then what you're going to be doing is you're going to be placing a paper where that shadow is once you create the shadow that you like. So what I'd like you to do is arrange your figures to create an image. So whatever kind of image, think about how you use space. Are you going to leave all this negative space? You're going to use this to create your scene. This is going to be sky and land down here. Now some objects don't cast a nice shadow. Like I saw this and I was like, oh, that'd be awesome to put a Star Wars figure into this scene. But when I put him down, it kind of just looks like a blob. I don't like how that looks particularly with this. I'd rather stick with the animals. And you'll also notice I got this owl, he's my mom's, and I thought this would be a nice shadow, but really again it comes out big and blob, so that's not going to work out. So I'm going to focus on these two guys first. So you want to think about where are they. Don't put them just on a straight line. Think about it like if they're on a hill. This one's smaller than this one. So maybe I move this one here, and you can choose which shadow you're going to trace. You're going to trace your dark shadow, your light. I'm getting a cast shadow here because I have 2 light bulbs in this projector. So now we're going to trace it. So if we're tracing it, you can use any medium you want: crayon, pencil, marker, anything you want. Just make sure that nothing moves. I prefer to do this in pencil, so you draw a light. That way if you want to change it, because there's nothing saying that it has to be this way at the end. Like this is just to start you off as inspiration. Sometimes it's hard to get in between. So take your time. Got that guy done. And you can even decide if you want to do your cast shadow as well. That could be interesting. So I'm going to do the cast shadow on this one because I like that big ear over here. I don't want to miss that. And this is another example of how you can create your own coloring page. Just that easy. Using a light bulb, some figurines in your house. So there's one example of using little figurines for cast shadows. So for this example, you can use any doll you have in your house, action figures, or if you are like me and you have one of these, or if you have a Barbie, any doll will work and it'll give you that human form. It's a little bit harder to get this shadow to cast nicely. So you can even think, depending on how much your Barbie or your doll moves, put them into some kind of action. So with these projects, you may need to tape down your paper so they don't slide around. I know I have a lot of students that struggle with that. They're drawing with one hand, their paper is moving. I always hold it down, but in this case, if you might need to hold your figurine in the right angle to get the right shadow, I've propped it up on another surface so I don't have to hold it, so I'm hands-free. And now you're going to go in and you're going to trace the shadows just like you did on those animals. But when you're done tracing these, you're not done. It's not, I mean, I guess if you want and you're like, okay, that's nice, but you could also continue and rework them. We'll do that next. And you can work your way around them. And if you want to change it up midway, that's up to you. I'm still liking how this is looking. I like the position I put it in. And again, if you want to pick a doll that has some mobility, that can be really interesting. And I'm doing both shadows because I did like how that looked on the elephants. And if you can't tell, I really like elephants. I'm having a hard time getting to this shadow. And if you're working with somebody, you help each other out. Maybe one person's on one side or maybe somebody's holding the light in a particular way. But play with it. Have fun, experiment, see what can you make. You might need to get like me in a weird position, wonky. That's fine. Remember, just take your time, relax, have fun with it. If you're not having fun, stop. No need to get worked up. And I'm not going to draw. Remember, you don't have to put all the aspects in. I'm not going to put this line in that's holding him up. I want it to look more like he's a person. So let's see how that looks. So this looks pretty nice, and I just decided I wanted to add a flower. And like I said, you need to get creative. Sometimes I taped him on one of my other figurines so I could get that right shadow. I want it to look like he's holding this flower. Don't be afraid to let your shadows go off the page. I tell my students this all the time. This is what makes a drawing or a painting look really interesting, is when your subject matter bleeds off the paper, you actually don't even realize that it makes it seem more compelling. So I'm going to draw this in. Remember, take your time, draw lightly, because you can always change this. There's nothing saying this is exactly what your piece needs to look like. And this is where, you know, if you're older, you can have a lot of fun with this, tracing something really challenging. Now this is a time where tracing is okay. You're not tracing somebody else's image. You're creating this. This is yours. No one else thought of this. You thought about this. So some of my older, like when I say older, I don't mean old. Anyone can do this, but let's see what we can create. And ultimately, art can bring happiness to the world. So we take this and now we can start adding color. I also brought this to play with. Sometimes when you shine a light through something like crystal, we get some of those pretty like glistening aspects. So you can play with that as well. So now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going back in and we're going to be adding our detail. So you can use mixed media. You could pick one thing in particular. I do love colored pencils. So you could go back in and now start adding the detail. Don't forget to blend. Don't forget that crayons can go on top of colored pencils. Mix these things together, see what you can create. Just don't be afraid to make a mistake, because guess what? You still have these supplies. You can redo this. There's nothing saying, or you can retrace your own art if you make a mistake. Get in there, have fun, play. Art is so much about playing. What can you create with your mind that no one else would think of? Only you thought of this. Only you decided to come listen to this video. You didn't have to. No one forced you. How can you recreate something really special? Something that maybe if you shared with somebody in your house would make them smile. make them happy. So how can we do that? What can we do? Don't forget that when we mix our markers with colored pencils, they too will change colors. Now, if you're like me and your marker is running out right now, you can actually soak markers. You can soak them in water. Water works okay. The best thing is water mixed with rubbing alcohol. If you just let them sit for about, not even that long, sometimes 15 to 30 minutes, and then you use them again. Or if they're really, really dried out, leave them sitting in like a spray bottle, sit them in there, like all yellows together, and then you get your own watercolor and you can spray those, and it's quite beautiful. So you're gonna do that. And then for this one, you're gonna make this one into more of a landscape. That's what I would do anyways with this. So I would think about these elephants being on some land, maybe some rolling hills. So this is where you can talk about background with some younger students. So background is anything around your imagery, what surrounds them. One thing I want to make sure I stress, I want to make sure that all of our skies come all the way down to our earth. So I know I see this a lot. You're coloring in your landscape, you're coloring in your sky, and it stops magically like this. Now remember, the horizon line is the line where the sky meets the land, and we want to make sure that we bring that line all the way down. Now we don't always see this. A lot of times if you're living in the city, the buildings block it, and I know some of my students get confused about this idea because they don't see the sky touching the land, and that's what we always talk about. But sometimes there'll be buildings here, and so the sky meets the buildings and the buildings meet the land. So we can go in and we can have some fun doing some different colors, like if it was a sunset or sunrise, our sun is bleeding through. Please try to stay away from those half circles in the corners, and then have fun. Thank you for joining for day 5 of Art with Miss Choate. I hope you had a great time following along with these tutorials. So remember, there are a couple keywords to remember and talk to your students about, talk to friends about if they don't know. Maybe this is an art thing that they haven't tried before, pass it along. So remember, the big one of the day was shadows, and that's obviously how we were casting those shadows of our figurines and things from around the house. And then the other two was the horizon and horizon line. So the line where the, trying to get that to get into focus, where the sky meets the land, and then also our landscape as well, because a lot of times our younger students, we take that for granted that they know what that is. So remember, that's the space around the figures. So anyways, thank you so much for joining. Please hit the subscribe button. If you didn't catch yesterday's video, take a look at that, and please just spread the word. I want to make sure everyone's creating in this time of worry and confusion. So please join us on Monday for our next installment. Over the weekend, I might post some daily art challenges on my Facebook and Instagram, so take a look for those. And I hope you have a wonderful Friday and a fantastic weekend. Bye.